everybody, and welcome to a brand new edition of Beyond Stuff's another throwback show here on the Beyond Stuff channel. My name is Brian Chaber, and I'm joined via Discord by Luis Vasquez. How you doing, Luis?
I'm doing good, surviving the apocalypse. Week number 5, I guess.
Oh boy, I think we're gonna be staying like this for a little while longer, and I'm starting to get nuts because I miss going out. I miss going to work, but I have Animal Crossing, so I guess that's fine. But I miss going to the movies. But we're not here to talk about the whole quarantine situation. We're all living through it. My message to you guys is stay at home. Don't get out. Only go out if you need anything essential. But if you have to stay home, stay at home. But we're here to talk about one of the best trilogies on the comic book genre, which is the Dark Knight trilogy, directed by Christopher Nolan. I watched these last week. I enjoyed them all equally, but I wanted to do this show to rank them. So let's start with our third spot. Which is your third favorite Dark Knight movie?
Well, that's a really hard question for me because, uh, you know, Batman Begins has a better narrative than The Dark Knight Rises, but I kind of enjoyed a little bit more The Dark Knight Rises because I think it has better acting and much emotion. I have much more emotional connection with The Dark Knight Rises. So my favorite for to sa un pelito, Batman Begins. I will put
Batman Begins.
as the least favorite.
But
Yeah.
my Batman Begins for me is my number two, and all credits to Liam Neeson portraying Ra's al Ghul. I think his presence as that dark character, a mostly dark character in the DC Comics, was amazing. It was a good beginning of the Batman story, and yeah, I regardless of my favorite is the Dark Knight Rises because I I I think it went on for too long. I think Batman Begins for me when it comes to time. It was the perfect amount of time Batman Begins. Unlike The Dark Knight Rises, which is a good movie. It is good. Talking about Christopher Nolan's filmography, most people consider the Dark Knight Rises one of his not of his best work in on his whole filmography, but still it's a rather
Yeah, they
good
consider the
movie.
weakest.
Yeah, it's the weakest, but
Yeah,
it's still a great movie,
yeah.
which speaks a lot of Christopher Nolan's ability in film. But for me, my third favorite is The Dark Knight Rises. Because of that, I think it went on a little bit too long, but it was still a strong movie. I really like Tom Hardy as Bane, even though I was a little bit annoyed by his voice. I recently watched the Harley Quinn show, and they still make the voice silly for Bane. I see Bane as this
Uh,
big, terrifying monster, and he sounds like a little bitch with that little voice. So your second favorite is The Dark Knight Rises, right?
yeah, again, it's almost a tie, but yeah, the Dark Knight Rises. I understand that it has its flaw, and I will admit that Dark Knight Rises. I think for me they made it into two movies because a lot of things happen at the same time that you just like what and it span for months, and you're just like, okay, how the hell did this happen? How did Bruce Wayne, after he escaped from that hole, went to Gotham City. If Gotham City is quarantine, it's like
Yeah.
to to me they made sense, and they needed to explain that.
What a weird movie to watch now. We see Gotham City getting closed and quarantined, and at least we haven't gotten there yet. As in terms of the madness that Gotham was living in that movie. So it was a little bit weird to see that situation happening on that movie and then living the quarantine life right now here. But it
Yeah,
is a great movie regardless. I think I really like the story behind Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. One of the things that I
See,
love the most about this whole trilogy is how grounded they make the whole fantastic world of Batman. Now we know Batman is one of the most grounded characters in the DC Comics universe, but it still has this bits and pieces of fantasy involved in the series of in the animated series, in other older movies and everything. And Christopher Nolan made it work that this comic book films can work on a grounded world in a more realistic in a more realistic terms. Because we all know that DC has this fantastic element to it. Even though Batman is one of the most grounded characters in DC Comics, it still has its bits and pieces of fantasy and all that sorts. So I really,
yeah.
really admire Christopher Nolan's work on grounding the world of Batman into a more realistic world.
No, yeah, totally agree with what you're saying. That's what I love about Christopher Nolan. He has that element of making everything feel real. Like you're watching this and you're like, okay, this could happen in real life, even though it's based on a comic book, even though it's a guy, in a bad suit fighting with the um, over the top super villains. Everything felt real, and yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. It is without doubt the greatest comic book trilogy of all time, and it's gonna take a long time to surpass it because I think Christopher Nolan created a new era for comic book movies. Starting 2008 with The Dark Knight, and then at the same year, the Marvel Studios released Iron Man and whole two fantastic movies, especially with Iron Man. From there on, the
Yeah.
comic book movies started to get a hold of people's attention.
Yeah, and this is why I really really like DC the most when it comes to the how different it is from Marvel, because we get Marvel with Incredible Hulk and Iron Man, and though these are as well grounded, not it's not as grounded as the Dark Knight, and there's still this element of fantasy in the MCU. Of
See,
course, one of our favorite movies on the number one spot in the Dark Knight trilogy is The Dark Knight. We're talking about grounded.
see,
The Joker is one of the highlights of the entire movie. Uh, and even though Marvel was doing well with starting with Iron Man and then forward, Joker became the standard of what a good super comic book villain should be.
no, yeah, it's the Joker. Joker is not just a villain, but it's the symbol. It's a symbol of anarchy. It's the symbol of chaos. Even amidst it in the dark, he's an agent of chaos, which is the opposite of Batman. And basically, his ideology is that in chaos, everything is. That's why they portray it as you know tragic villain that he wanted to do good when he lost the love of his life. Then he basically turned to the dark side, started to do these horrible things out of frustration of losing the loss of the loss of his fiance.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is one of the things that I really enjoy the most about this trip of this movie, because we see how great Harvey Dent is, and then slowly turn into the monster that became Two Face, and that's all thanks
So
to the fantastic plan that the Joker had of make having the world burn around Batman and around Gotham City. And like I said,
so
Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker was so good that he became the standard of what a great comic book villain should be. And yeah, we had our Lokis, we had our whatnots, but nobody stood a chance with Heath Ledger's Joker for a long time. Then we saw Joaquin Phoenix kill it as the Joker in the Joker film. But still, when
yeah,
it comes to these worlds, because of course Joker we didn't have the elements of Batman around it, and we have the other superhero movies with all these fantastic heroes and all. We still haven't had that big villain that that stands with the Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. We could say something about Josh Brolin's Thanos, but still we don't have that strong big performance like Heath Ledger had.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the things that I really like about DC, and this is why I was Team DC for a while until Batman v Superman and all that stuff, and that's and uh, and that's the fact that these movies stayed grounded and didn't lean in too much into the fantasy. Yeah, you had to do it with Man of Steel because yeah, Superman is an alien, and even though it had that fantastic element, they still found a way to have a grounded Superman still, a more realistic Superman. Yeah, say what you will about Superman snapping the neck of the General Zod. Still,
Yes.
this is a real Superman. Yeah, he is. You can see him hopeful, but he has to do the hard choices, and it is grounded, and that is why I love DC so much.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm not. To be honest, I enjoy both DC and Marvel, but when it gets good, I tend to go to DC because Batman is my favorite superhero of all time,
Mhm.
and I enjoy the films that portray Batman. Before Vendetta, Watchmen, they're very mature films. I mean, Marvel has its mature films, but I think, I mean, at least the great movies, when they develop it, I mean, they develop it so good. I fall in love with this.
The one.
But
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of agree that recently DC sometimes has these mixed movies. You know, Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel was so. I think of all the movies that I've seen in my life, I think Man of Steel is the one that has annoyed me the most with product placements. I mean, you got to think every store you just like I was annoyed at that. But yeah, I mean, to this day, the not just the Batman, but the DC comic book movie that stands on top and will probably remain on top for a long time is The Dark Knight.
Yeah, because you still have the ingredients. The good thing that Warner Brothers had with this trilogy, and we'll see pretty soon with Matt Reeves, the Batman, is that you have great filmmakers behind it. Christopher Nolan is probably the best director of the more modern era of filmmaking. We have
Yes,
hits like Inception, Dunkirk, this Dark Knight trilogy. So, and this
Memento.
yeah, Memento. And we have these filmmakers, especially Christopher Nolan, that he understands the world that he's working with, and he found a way to make it grounded and make it believable to many of us. And we have to give thanks to Christopher Nolan for reviving the comic book genre because before The Dark Knight and before Batman Begins, the comic book genre wasn't taken as seriously before.
Well, yeah, it's that comic books in late 90s. Well, actually, before Batman, it came Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man was the first great comic book movie, and its sequel, Spider-Man 2.
But then,
Those
but
two
then,
movies.
but then we have Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not remember about that. But yeah, I would say like in the 90s, comic book we weren't taken serious. I mean, you saw Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, which killed the franchise for a little. And then in the early 2000s came Spider-Man and X-Men, both great comic book movies, and their sequels surpassed its preceders.
Yeah, but still, it wasn't. Even though these two movies, Spider-Man and the X-Men, they were hits. They didn't shook the entire film industry like The Dark Knight did because even after The Dark Knight, we saw Iron Man, we saw Hulk, and then we saw movies like Captain America and whatever, Batman v Superman. Even though I have my thoughts on Batman v Superman, it still made a ton of money in box office. Even and still, thanks to Christopher Nolan's work here on the Dark Knight trilogy, we see that the most dominating films in the box office are mostly comic book films. Aside from the Disney fantasy movies, comic book movies are the most winning, the most uh, profitable films in cinema today.
See,
So before we go, what are your hopes that you want to see with Matt Reeves' upcoming Batman movie?
uh, uh, more complexity, more into the character, his relationship with Robin. That will be interesting to how does he deal with the post trauma of the death of his parents. Even though we kind of already see Batman Begins, but it will be interesting seeing it on a new take because that's where Batman started with the murder of his parents. You know.
Yeah, and what do you think when you heard the casting of Robert Pattinson as Batman, following Ben Affleck and following, of course, Christian Bale in this trilogy?
I think he can do it because I think he's a good actor. I know that everyone hates him because of Twilight. I also dislike the Twilight movies. Don't hate it. That I've just seen the movies and I know they're bad. But Robert Pattinson, he's a good actor. If you see him in Goblet of Fire,
Good
the
times.
Lighthouse, yeah,
Good.
good.
Yeah.
You know that he can pull off a good performance. So I think that he's a good actor. I
Uh,
think he can pull off the Batman.
Yeah, I think we've been lucky to have two straight good Batmans. Say what you will about the movies, Justice League, which is terrible, and Batman v
Yeah.
Superman, but I was really sold with Ben Affleck's Batman performance. Then we had Christian Bale, that
Same
despite
here.
yeah, despite the silly voice that Christian Bale's Batman had, because you could easily put like a voice changer into that mask. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
Christian Bale's Batman, and Christian Bale's Batman it was just as good as Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, because mostly with this Batman character, you're playing dual roles. You're playing just not you're not only playing Batman, but you're playing Bruce Wayne. I think Ben Affleck did it well too. And when I saw Robert Pattinson and they announced the casting, I saw a good Bruce Wayne in his face. So I'm very hopeful for what's coming for Robert Pattinson in the Batman coming maybe on 2030. So before we go, where can the guys find you, Luis?
You can follow me on Instagram /luisantepotter@yahoo.com.
Well, and you guys can find me, of course, at the It's the One Nerd on Twitter, and of course in all the Beyond Stuff platforms on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Beyond Stuff PR. I'm gonna be making a few announcements very soon, so stay tuned to those. Thank you so much for joining me, Liz,
You're welcome anytime.
and I'll be seeing you guys next time here on the Beyond Stuff channel. See ya.